Chapter 5. Anne Goes to Church. "Well, how do you like them?" asked Marilla. Anne looked down at the 3 new dresses that Marilla had made. "I'll imagine that I like them," Anne said quietly. "I don't want you to imagine it," Marilla said. "I can see you don't like the dresses. What's the matter with them?" They're not pretty," said Anne. "Pretty indeed," Marilla said with a sniff. "Those are good, sensible dresses without ruffles and frills. The brown gingham and the blue print will do for school. The black and white sateen is for church and Sunday school. I'll expect you to keep them neat and clean. I should think you'd be grateful to get them after those ragged things you've been wearing." Oh, I am grateful," Anne said, "but I wish just one of them had puffed sleeves. Puffed sleeves are so fashionable." "Well, I think they look silly," Marilla said. "I like dresses to be plain and sensible. Now hang them up carefully, then sit down and learn the Sunday school lesson for tomorrow." Marilla went back downstairs. Anne looked at the dresses again and sighed. "I did hope there would be a white one with puffed sleeves," she whispered. "I'll just have to imagine that one of them has lace frills and 3 puffs on each sleeve." The next morning Marilla felt sick, so she couldn't take Anne to Sunday school. "You'll have to go with Mrs. Lynde," she told Anne. "Now behave yourself. Don't stare at people, and don't fidget. Here's a penny for the collection." Anne started off down the lane. Along the way she picked buttercups and wild roses. She made a big wreath of flowers and put it on her new plain sailor hat. Anne thought the flowers made her outfit look prettier. Mrs. Lynde wasn't home, so Anne went on to the church alone. "Well, how did you like Sunday school?" Marilla asked when Anne came home. Marilla did not see Anne's decorated hat. The flowers had faded, so Anne had dropped the wreath in the lane. "I didn't like it a bit," Anne said. "It was horrid." "Anne Shirley," Marilla said. "Mr. Bell's opening prayer was awfully long," Anne said, "and all the girls in my class had puffed sleeves except me." "You shouldn't have been thinking about sleeves in Sunday school," Marilla said. "I hope you knew the lesson." "Oh, yes," Anne said. "I answered a lot of questions. After Sunday school, Miss Rogerson showed me your pew in church. The sermon was long, too. The preacher wasn't very interesting, so I didn't listen much." Deep down, Marilla agreed with Anne about Mr. Bell's prayers and the minister's sermon. She knew she ought to scold Anne for not listening in church, but somehow she just couldn't bring herself to do it. On Friday, Marilla went to visit Mrs. Lynde. There she heard about the flowers on Anne's hat. "Anne," Marilla said when she came home, "Mrs. Lynde said you went to church with roses and buttercups on your hat. That was a silly thing to do." "But lots of girls had flowers pinned on their dresses," Anne said. "Don't answer me back, Anne," Marilla said. "Mrs. Lynde says people talked about it something dreadful. They must think I have no better sense than to let you go to church looking like that." Anne's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I never thought you'd mind. Lots of the girls had flowers on their hats. Maybe you'd better send me back to the orphanage. That would be terrible, but it would be better than being a trial to you." "Nonsense," Marilla said. "I don't want to send you back to the orphanage. I just want you to behave like other little girls. Don't cry anymore. I've got some good news for you. Diana Barry came home. I'm going to borrow a pattern from her mother. If you like, you can come with me to meet Diana." Anne stood up and clasped her hands. "Oh, Marilla, I'm scared," she whispered. "What if Diana doesn't like me?" "I'm sure Diana will like you," Marilla said. "It's her mother you've got to please. I hope Mrs. Barry hasn't heard about the flowers on your hat. She won't know what to think of you. You must be polite and well-behaved, and don't say anything startling."